I wanted to have some visuals for you because it's a big topic. And so the first slide here talks about what health and wealth have in common. So the first thing I did was I started to look at words that are used in both areas. And so if you see there, self is really big because it has to do with yourself usually in both areas. And you're the only one that can affect that change. And so you'll see on there personalization, resources, consistency, paying attention, confidence, accountability, positive, and commitment are all things that we talk about when we're trying to work through these types of goals around health and wealth. So they do align in a lot of those areas. So the other thing I started to look at was, how do we keep it simple enough? Because these two areas people innately avoid or can be fearful of it or just don't want to pay attention. And so I started to look at balance and what do we actually personally have control of. And it was interesting because I started with that life balance wheel that you see a lot of times when you're working with coaches, where you're trying to affect balance in all of those areas. And the goal is to have a perfect circle running through all those sections, which there's a lot of things that influence, your career. There's a lot of things that influence family dynamics that you don't have any control over. There's no way you can have a control over. These are disruptors and you can't have complete control of those areas. So it's really hard to balance them all at the same time, almost impossible, especially now with the world how it is today. So on the right side, I looked at food, fitness, and finance, which we can control what we spend. We can control what we eat and how we eat, and we can control how much we move, which interestingly enough, in this pandemic, we were all put to the test. We were all put to the test because all of a sudden, everybody was on the same plane and couldn't do the normal things. They couldn't go to the gym. They had to come up with creative ways of moving. And, their spending also changed because they weren't spending on things, but they had expenses in other areas. So we can control these things. And the concept is, how can we pay attention enough to each one of those areas to affect a balance or to reach a common goal down the road. And that's where this whole process of me exploring and looking at how these things intersect began. So these aren't all the obstacles that they have in common, but I just gave you a taste of when you're looking at health, people can be fearful of going to the doctor. Just like when you're looking at wealth, you can become easily overwhelmed with the topics because it's pretty foreign to most people unless you're in the field like I am. The second is in health, one of the excuses or obstacles is you're too busy to take the time. With wealth, it's straight up avoidance because it's something that you need to pay attention to, but it's not comfortable. And so you'll just avoid it until something happens where you have to pay attention. In health, you see anxiety. People could eat due to anxiety. Wealth, on the other side, they spend because it's an impulsive. There's an impulse there to do that. There's all kinds of reasons behind that, why people do this, why they have anxiety, but you can see there's similar obstacles to overcome. And then the last thing I have on there is lack of knowledge and lack of confidence. So those are interchangeable, but the lack of knowledge and lack of confidence, when I start working with clients in the financial sense and try to build their self-confidence, those things are easily overcome because if you have a trusted professional or a team of professionals, they can help you get through that. But the other things above the list, those are things that you have to overcome by making it more of a positive relationship with these two things.